So many advisors would like to bring a family member to take over their business, but there's a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, a lot of big conversations, especially when you have a niche business. Today, we have a father and son duo. I can't wait for you to meet Ken and Ryan White. Hi, I'm Chris Reynolds, and I'm on a mission to help independent financial advisors build a better business through a remarkable client experience. In this podcast, you're going to learn how to do that from my conversations with the visionaries, the leaders, the independent advisors who are reshaping the future of the financial advice industry. At the end of each episode, you're going to walk away with an actionable idea that you can take and use right now, and it will help you to build a better business today. This is Turning the Page. As we've talked about many times on this podcast, finding the right successor for your business is not an easy task. And it's especially hard if you have a niche or specialty, that takes training and mentorship. This makes the task even a little bit harder. In addition, a lot of advisors I talk to, they love to keep their financial advice business in the family. After all, they've spent years growing it. And now maybe they have a son or a daughter, love to take it over and keep that family tradition going. So today, to help us with that, we're going to talk to a father-son duo who's doing just that. Ken and Ryan White, they're both from Guelph Financial, of course, in Guelph, over 20 years experience. And I was talking to Ken a little bit before. Ken's been, with IBC for how long now, Ken?
25 years last month.
25 years. Boy, we both started when we were 10. So, you can probably tell. But just to give you a little background, but I'm going to let them tell their story. Ken's been, as I said, he's been kicking around since 1992. In addition to, the great job he does as a financial advisor, helping people with, the financial and estate planning needs, he's really become passionate and a real advocate to help families with special needs. He's really one of the experts in one of the little known government programs. He does different programs, RDSPs, Henson trusts. This is a real specialty, and I'm sure that we're going to dwell on this a little bit, but he's really able to add that extra value that most advisors really can't bring to the table. There's a specialty, and not many advisors know a whole lot about it, and he's pretty well one of Canada's foremost experts on it. He's also, by the way, a great musician. I've seen him play drums at bars, but I don't think we'll get too deep into that one on this one. And then recently, of course, actually not that recently, he's been here for a while now. Since 2017, Ryan has have been helping Ken and slowly taking over the business to the point where he's really taking over the business. Now, Ryan, of course, he started in the bank style and came over to the good side. Over time, he learned what not to do and then joined his dad. So, welcome, Ken, Ryan. Welcome to Turning the Page.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
So maybe we'll do one at a time. I'll start with Ken. We'll do age before beauty, as we say. Ken, tell us your story. Tell our audience your story. How did you get here?
I started working in a factory way back when I was 15 and all that stuff. It was actually my dad's company. My grandfather bought it back in 52. And we made garage door springs factory. We were the first garage door spring manufacturer in Canada. We were the second, real largest purchaser of oil-tempered wire from Stelco for farm equipment, springs and stuff. And over the years, I got to know everything from the floor right up into the sales. And it was going to be my business. And it was over a 100-year-old business by the time I was that level and didn't have to worry about brothers or cousins and stuff like that. And then in 92, I went to see a financial advisor from the strangest person, my wife, said, we got to go talk to this guy. And put $100 a month away into a pack. That's all he was trying to do. And when he explained all the things that went on in financial planning, it was like an epiphany. It was like, this is what I want to do. So it was weird. I'm sort of glad I ended up that way because the company did eventually go under a few years later. But this has just been my passion. And like I say, here I am, 67 years old. I wanted to be able to retire at 60. I could, but I'm still here because I like what I do. I'm not here full time anymore. Ryan's taken it over, and I'm so proud of him on that. But back in 2010, I got involved with a family and special needs family, and it started to talk about the RDSPs. So, like you have always said, try to find your niche, but everybody's going after high net worth clients or blah blah blah. I was like, I can't figure out my niche in this business until I saw the Registered Disability Savings Plan, and I thought, okay, it's federally regulated. You for the first $500 per year, the government will give you 3 times whatever you put in, and then on the next $1,000 per year, 2 times. So $1,500 gets you $3,500, and if you're low income, you're looking at $1,000 a year with I can't say free according to compliance, so I say at no cost, bonds.
Close.
Um,
Yeah.
and, so and no, back in 2010, in fact, actually, in the RDSP, you can go retro up to 10 years, but it was only 2 years old, so there wasn't big dollars
Right.
there,
Before.
and there wasn't tax-free savings accounts yet. There wasn't, you could only have $2,500 in an account, or you'd start losing your ODSP and things like that. So the numbers didn't it just felt good to help people, and so I was just doing all my other stuff. As the, numbers started to grow, and I started to see the help that this gave people, and then the over contributions that can be done to an RDSP, and looking at the longevity, it just became a no-brainer. Everybody's getting older, everybody's getting less healthy,
Right.
no matter how bad or how well you work out, and more people are qualifying for these things. And when you think about the job that we do, and I told you when I first joined back in 98 that this business is about money, but when it becomes about money, I'm not going to be here anymore.
Right.
So this answered that question for me. And it actually does both. If you look at helping people who really need your help, then the money just happens. And we've done
Right.
very, very well. The numbers are going crazy. And the longevity in the money that we have, like I say, I'm number one in Ontario with Mackenzie and RDSP. So I have a few of them. So if you take my stats as being sort of rule of thumb,
Right.
my average client's not going to start taking out money out of their RDSP for 28 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's a
28
20-year
years.
wind down. We're
Right.
talking 48-year normal wind down of an investment as of today. They're growing on an average of 30% every year since,
All right.
2012, and so many people qualify. And when you start looking at being all the retroactive stuff now, going back to up to 10 years, because or back to when they qualify for the disability tax credit, $3,500 can get them 10,500 in matching grants and $11,000 in bonds. That's year one. Next year, you get 4,000, get you another 10,500 in matching grants and $1,000 in bonds because you've done all your retro. The next 2 years, $5,000 each year, now get you another $10,500 each year and so the numbers can grow really fast, locked in, and you money to the beneficiary, who's the person that can have this money, who normally says, "Well, how am I gonna live down the road when my
Right.
parents
Right.
give us?"
How am I going to get by?
You
Yeah.
now put some serious money away for them at their retirement, basically at age 60 is when you start taking the money out. You've also given a stress relief to the caregivers, the parents, grandparents, whatever, saying, wow, there's actually some money here for my kids that I really love and want to take care of, but how do I do that? And it is like, wow, geez, now maybe I can even spend some of my money on my life and enjoy my life without feeling guilty.
Right.
Then we invest this money into the economy, so it's good for the economy. And with all this money that's being built up, with Mackenzie, RBC, and BMO right now, we're over about $5 billion. And if
Wow.
their numbers are the same as ours or mine, then and nobody's touching that $5 billion for the next 28 years, but it's growing at 30% a year. I know they're not because they don't focus on it as I am, but
Sure.
if they did, and I can help them, that what's that money going to be when the future caregivers are gone and the future taxpayers aren't going to have to finance that because it's going to be old money. So the taxpayer wins, the beneficiary wins, the caregiver wins, the economy wins. And if you want to build your business with longevity and financially helping yourself, but emotionally helping yourself, there's nothing that beats the RDSP.
I have never heard anyone more passionate about their particular business, and you can tell, like, you glow when you talk about your business and when you get in, and it's because, financial advice is a noble business. It is one that gives back, and to your point, it's not just giving back, monetarily, it gives back emotionally. You're actually helping people,
Yeah.
and you can see why, within your whole family. I bet this is a discussion that goes around the dining room table on a regular basis. So, so Ryan, what about your story? How did you get here? Of course, you grew up with this, and you had Ken very passionately talking about his business. But what made you really decide this is something I want to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a pretty long journey. I was working for the banks in the late 90s. So it really, I mean, it wasn't long after he got started, really, when you think about it. And Ken always had a, we always talked about, this business could be yours one day. It was always kind of in the back of my mind. Now, when I was 14, 15, the gravitas was lost on me. But I ended up getting a job at the bank, and
Right.
I really liked it. I started off as a teller, and it was, at the time, it wasn't really a salesy role, but it started to slowly get implemented, and I found that I really thrived on it. And really, what I really liked about the sales aspect is I found that there were individuals who were just trying to kind of cram products in down
Right.
people's throats a little bit.
Right. Whether they knew it or not.
That's right. And that didn't really sit well with me. My parents always, taught me integrity, play by the rules, all that sort of thing.
Right.
And so to me, giving somebody a credit card just because it was a sale for you, that didn't really sit well with me. But what I liked to do was I liked to look at their account package, and I'd be like, this credit card's actually free for you. Like, let's compare what your credit card does versus this one to save you $120, blah, 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 blah. And now if you're going to use this, well, let's use your line of credit to save you on interest for any, and so that was how I structured it. So
Right.
a lot of people were trying to, if they saw 100 as a teller, if they saw 100 clients, a week or whatever, probably more than that, they were trying to sell each of them one thing. Well, I would try and say, okay, well, you got this. It makes sense to also have this, this, and this. And it was very package based, and there was a value behind what I was offering, not just a product, right? So it was always very value based. That got me recognized and quickly promoted to an advisor. So now, Ken and I are basically doing the same thing. Ken on a much higher level, obviously, but we were getting,
Well, you are.
so now we were, yeah. So, but we were bonding on that, and we could come
Right.
home and talk about it and
Right. Have
relate
those
that way.
discussions.
Yeah. And so that growth and that potential of me taking over or joining him one day, that obviously became more of a focus. But it was also important to me that I, made my own way in the business too. I always
Right.
told myself that, I really liked the people I worked with. We say it's the dark side, but I have such great memories of my time at the banks. I worked with such incredible people. And they really brought, I was a pretty shy kid. So that job really brought me out of my shell quite a bit. And so, yeah, it was really a lot of fun. And I just said, you know what, I want to make sure that before I join my dad, I'm a branch manager, and I've, proven to myself that I can do it on my own. And so I did that. And the one thing that being a branch manager taught me was, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed the role, but I missed dealing with the clients. Right.
Right. The
Because when you're a
customer.
branch,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but you're doing a lot of coaching with your team, and that's very rewarding. But I found that, you deal mostly when you're a branch manager, when you're dealing with clients, it's because something went wrong.
It's like,
You know,
not for a good reason, usually for a bad
exactly.
reason. Yeah.
And so I wanted to go back to dealing with clients when things were going right. And there was no better opportunity than, you know, joining my dad, who had at this point, 20 years later, had 17, I guess, really had built such an incredible business with a foundation of, integrity, like he taught me, but it had evolved into this specialization, which really has grown so much more since I joined, with helping families with special needs. So again, you say it's an honorable profession, and it absolutely is. And I think with a focus on, people's health, it doesn't get any more honorable than that.
No, it's fantastic. And what you guys do is just incredible. And so, Ken, how did that conversation come up? Tell us about that. Like, all of a sudden, your son's in the business, working in the banks, you get the successful business, you have a great niche, you're really helping people. This is one of the challenges that I think that some of our listeners go through. How do you actually have that conversation with, your son or daughter when they're coming into the business and knowing that's the right decision?
Part of it was me thinking about not working anymore, which
That's always good.
I was in my 50s, so I knew it was coming. So is it that I don't work? And if I don't work, what do I do with it? The business. And because Ryan had done so well at TD and RBC, He knew the business on one side, and I knew he was more on a compliance level than myself, which it's sort of gonna stick forever, I think. But anyways,
Yeah.
which is good, because there's a lot more of it now. But it was like, okay, but I didn't want to force him into something that he didn't want to do just because.
Right.
So I let him more or less take his time to make that decision on his own, but sort of offering, and if you're interested, let me know, because I didn't want to walk away all of a sudden too and just say, hey, there you go, good luck.
Right.
Because he knew there was going to be stuff I learned off him, which I have, and I still am. Stuff he would learn off me, which would have never been presented through the banks. And so it was a good learning curve for both of us, and it was a great fit. Then I also had to worry about my clients. Well, my clients
Right.
like Brian. Well, all the clients
They
banks like Brian, so the odds are
Mm.
pretty good they would like it, and they love him. And so this has been such an easy transition. The hardest part is for me to go home, because we both work well together. We have a lot of fun. In fact, when you come to work in this office, the first thing is you have to want to laugh because we're not a professional business office.
Right. Right.
We're stuff. We follow the rules, but we have
Had a good sense of humor.
we do, and it fits really well, and of course, I tell clients, "I want you to meet my son because he's gonna be here for the next 15, 20 years," which lets them feel comfortable too. Because it was coming up to we're about 57, 58, I guess, about 10 years ago,
Right.
where I wasn't thinking about it, but the clients were thinking, "Who's gonna take after go
Right.
if you go, who's gonna look after your business?"
Well,
So
especially in this niche that you have developed, like there's not too many people that you can trust there, would there be?
no, and still it's even there's still lots to learn, and we're still learning. So it was a great fit for Brian to come in, and the clients love him, and so this has been awesome. And like I said, because of this niche of the RDSPs, the connections we're making with centers of influence, there's about 17 centers of influence you need to run your business properly when you associate RDSPs to your business, from accountants
Interesting.
to home renovators to lawyers, Henson Trust people, DTC. There's so many people that can use your help, and you can use their help because they're stuck. It's so massive and it's so rewarding on so many different levels with so many different people. And the stuff I've got, it's just awesome. And you can go from the people who have very little money and still be rewarding,
Right.
but there's multi-millionaires out there who need this help because God doesn't care how much money you make. He's equal opportunity disability branch route, giving out this stuff.
Right.
So we're bringing in multi-million-dollar clients because the banks don't want to look at our DSPs.
Well, also, even will not want or even unable to because of the specialty nature of it. Like what you just said, you might actually take for granted, but I find very special. You need 17 different professionals or interactions with connections with different types of influences.
No, you don't need
Right.
them. You don't. It's
But it's
just that
certainly
they were
helpful, I would
available.
imagine.
You could expand into that size if you want. You just if somebody gets a disability tax credit, they're under the age of 59. Boom, you can sign them up for an RDSP.
Right.
49 for grants and bonds. But all I did when I started doing this, as my clients were leaving, I would say, "Oh, by the way, there's this new registered plan out there by the government, registered disability savings plan that has up to $90,000 available to a person with a special need. So if you know
Right.
anybody that has autism, Down syndrome, or has mental or physical disabilities, we can chat about that." Well, they turn around and go, "Well, we have an autistic kid. We
Right.
have," because the thing is they live it. They don't bring it up through your conversations, and we're not asking.
Very good point. Very good point.
Statistically, 22% of people qualify for the disability tax credit. So how many are over 59, whatever? But that also means statistically, 22% of your existing clients already qualify. You just
Right.
haven't asked them.
You just
22% of the
haven't
employees
never
at
broached the
IPZ
subject.
qualify.
Right.
You don't have
Is
to
what
go
I'm
look for
saying.
new people. They're there.
Yeah, there but to your point, and as I said, I think that this is, what ends up happening is it's something that people don't feel that comfortable with, whether it's talking or the technical aspects of it, and that's why it is such a great niche that you guys have developed and doing such a good thing to give back, not only from a financial point of view, but for your community. To your point, this is something that, sort of continues to give back. And so, just to, come back full circle to this, we talked about how big this market is, why advisors should look at, why it stops them. But how did you really get down that track? Like, was it just the first one you saw and then you started to develop it again, or was it more
Yeah,
complicated?
pretty much. And then, the way that I've always found to learn stuff is actually write it out. for me anyways. So
Right.
I developed an Excel spreadsheet, and so now I track all my clients, and it starts off with a dashboard, and then they have their own individual chart, and it gives every month, every year of personal contributions, grants, and bonds, and I download the information from Universe, and it takes me 2 minutes to set up a new client, and everything is almost automatically done. And in one of the last conferences, I went to there, I talked to the guys at Universe. I showed them my plan. We did a Zoom meeting, and I showed them and said, "That's easy." So we could actually implement it into IPC, and we'd be the only company in the world doing this. And it's like filling out a client information sheet. It could just run itself.
R right? No, as I said. Now, Ryan, you're taking over this business now. You're the
Yeah.
next generation.
Yeah.
What's your approach? How is your approach different in the business now? What have you seen that, you sort of excelled upon? What have you seen that you said, "This is like the foremost, and this is what we can do better?"
Well, I think
And this is what we're not going to do.
Or
yeah.
more importantly, we
Well,
are not gonna do anymore, which I'm gonna fall into the category of this older what we can do better.
yeah, there's a little bit of both of that, right? Because, when you take over, there's things that, especially when you're starting this business, like there was things that you did to grow that, now that you're established, you don't have to focus on that quite as much, right? So, we have established clients, so it's about growing those relationships and finding out more and it's not a so to me I mean that's great because I think it increases retention, client retention, right? It brings in the next of kin, you can start dealing with their children as they get older. So that's a big focus. Like it was for us to really go into growing relationships with existing clients. And a big part of that was when Ken did mention Ryan's joining us. And we had one client who was an RDSP client, and it was a larger RDSP. But once he found out that Ken had a succession plan, he moved the rest of his business, which was nearly $1 million on top of
Oh,
all that he
fantastic.
had.
That's a great success story.
Yeah, and then a few years later, he became a trustee for somebody, and so we managed that investment as well. That was another 500,000 or so, and then those clients who were the beneficiaries of the trust, well, they wanted to, meet the people who would be managing the investments, and then they moved all their stuff over, and so that all stemmed from having a succession plan in place, along with that niche and that sort of that family mentality. And we're here to look after your family, not your RSP. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so yeah, that was really big. As far as like doing things differently, yeah, I don't really know. I think what Ken has in place is very solid. Talk a little more succinctly, I think. Um, the charts that he creates and all that is powerful. And, for me, it's great that he's still here to like work on that. He keeps that a living document. And so when clients call in, you're able to give them up to date, accurate information, all this sort of stuff. So it's good to be able to, I mean, you want to be proactive in this business, but there's going to be times where you need to be reactive and being prepared certainly helps with that. And Ken's built a great foundation. So and it's funny that when you first get here, especially was a branch manager for a few years, hadn't been doing
Right.
mutual funds for a while, was still licensed, obviously. But the first few months that I'm here, I'm watching him do things and doing joint meetings with clients. I'm like, oh, I did that. I used to do that. And like
Okay, yeah.
see the things that it was like, that just maybe genetically are just things that you do because you're related. And it was there was some comfort in that because it could be scary, right? I left the bank, it's a
Right. The
salaried position. You
infrastructure.
come into, sales, basically mutual fund sales. And it could be scary. And to know that you're going to be taking it over. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better role model than my dad and somebody to, when things, get a little bit intimidating, he's there to back you up and reassure you and everything like that. Cause it's going to be, scary for somebody coming into the business as scary as it is for somebody to have to learn to let go.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think you guys, again, have done it right, over a period of time. So where are you in your succession plan? Have you thought it out? Have you thought about who could take it over? Have you thought about your processes? I would love to have a conversation about this topic. All you have to do is go to the show notes, hit a link, and we can have a coffee together and talk all about your future succession plan. Now, I go to Ken is, was there any challenges that you ever overcome? So in other words, if you had to talk to, all my listeners and give them a few pieces of advice, is there anything that you would do differently? Or, did you guys have it together?
Might have changed the lock sooner.
Not talk so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say you can't scare me. I'm married. Um, uh, no, I think again, leaving it open, realizing that, Ryan's Ryan and I'm me. We do have differences, but we
Right.
agree together and we don't. We talk about it a little bit. We've never really had much of a conflict. And I can't say that that's going to happen with everybody. This has just been a really good fit. And it's worked really well. So no, I think we've done a really good job of this. And no, I'm happy the way it's happened. It's taken time, but that's okay because I don't see him any other time mostly. So
So
it's
this is
it's
the
a bit,
time.
bit of family time. So it's
Yeah.
good too.
I love it. So, my last question is, so what's next? Where do you see the business going from here? And I'll start with Ryan. Ryan, what do you think is next for the business?
Well, I think for us, it's we've got so much going on right now with really like, been working on RDSPs for a while, but it's really been the last couple years that it's really blown up. And utilizing your partners in the community, helping people who need help beyond what we're actually doing. Like we're managing the investments in the RDSPs and we're giving advice around things, but you know, who are we partnering with, or to help people actually set up the Henson Trust, because we don't do that. That's all done through your will. So we need to work
Right.
with, you know, and and that uncovers a bunch of other opportunities because then people start to trust you in the community. And the amount of referrals we're getting in from these people from,
I bet.
these people in the community now, it's almost too much. Like it's getting to the point, and that's maybe the difference. Ken doesn't know this, but he's done next Friday. But no, but so he's thinking, he's like, yeah, yeah, take on board, and absolutely, I'm thinking the same thing. But I also am like, okay, we also need to be able to service our client, and I think,
Right.
that's something that when you're starting to grow this business and you have so much capacity, your ceiling for capacity is, it's decades away potentially. Whereas now we're trying to work within our capacity and how do we run the business efficiently? Because if you don't do that, I think the service level struggles.
Right. Right.
And then client retention becomes difficult because, your clients need to feel like they're being paid attention to.
Yeah. That they're
Um, yeah. And so while we're not at that ceiling just yet, if we're getting 5, 10 referrals a week, well, it's going to get there. You know what I mean?
eventually it'll get there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so, yeah, that's really what it is. I think that's really the only difference. Embrace what Ken built and keep that alive. But you also need to focus on efficiency and structure and then maintaining those strong bonds that you've created.
Yeah. No, I love it. And Ken, as you have your graceful exit, what do you think is next?
Yeah, well, Ryan's right on there. And again, because if then going sort of back to your other question there, what was the differences on when I started in the business in 92, you had to work for every dollar. I had
Right.
nothing. I had rent and I had
He had rent,
expenses.
he had overhead. Yeah.
And I had to make, whatever. So, and I had 3 kids and had a house, and that's why I played in the band and also I tried to, be able to buy groceries and stuff. So, but now he's walking into an established business, but now it's getting to the point, like you said, the referrals we're getting from lawyers. Lawyers are calling me up saying, "We've just done this structured settlement, but we got this extra $400,000. Can you help us out with it?" Those are the referrals. So if you realize that all these diamond, all these accident lawyers are out there, they're all doing structured settlements. They have cash laying around, and it's usually in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
They need help. That's not a bad referral to do some business with.
No,
Stick
it's
kids
get
hot.
one of those every week, you all set? Yeah.
Well, and that's what's starting to happen. And yes, it's complicated, but once you get the system in place with the display tax credit, and Peter Curtis works with a number of us IPC guys and other companies too, and he's in our office, so it's like a one-stop shop, which is really cool. But we have the display tax credit, then we have the RDSPs, then we have the Henson Trusts, and so we have everybody that once you get a method in role sorting, it's not that hard. And because we have it more of a system now, and it's a learning curve, and we're still learning, and the rules are changing every year too. So
Right.
you gotta stay on top of it, but they don't change fast, but they are getting better. Then it isn't as complicated as this all sounds. It takes time to learn it, like anything. But the referral base out there from March of Dimes, Canadian Mental Health Association, Trillium, Kids
Many
Ability,
places.
the
Right.
blind, the deaf, autism, Down syndrome, schizophrenia, like, holy mackerel. No, we haven't even scratched the surface. And again, it's one of those things where a lot of them will be high net worth people when they sell their homes now because of the values of homes, and they got to come. What do you do with that money? And then there's the people that just need your help and tear up because I have 3 or 4 families now that have 3 kids with autism.
Wow. Ooh.
How do you have a life like that? And they're
Yeah.
great people. And I have Ryan, I have Matt and Tara, and they're awesome kids, and I'm proud of each one of them. I can't appreciate what these people go through. I just do my best for them as I can.
And you've done a wonderful job. So, as a summary, sort of my rant is you guys have really done a great job, Ken. You've built a fantastic business around a niche that really gives back. As I said, it really gives back. And I've seen, I remember when we had almost the first conversation around this and how you've built such a great process around it. The having the conversation, bringing Ryan into the business, having take over that legacy, but also putting his spin on it. And I think you've done it well. The clients are all happy. Your business continues to grow. And to your point, it's a noble profession that really, it's not about the money. It's about all the help that you give to all of your clients and helping them see things that they probably wouldn't be able to access necessarily without your help. And all of that equals a successful business. Thank you both for being on the show. Any final words for our audience?
Like Gandalf said to Frodo in the Mines of Moria, says, "Nobody gets to choose the time they're on the earth, only what they do with the time they're given."
I love that. That's a great piece of advice. Ryan, any final words?
I don't know how to top that.
How to stop that either.
Yeah, without breaking copyright. Yeah, I know. You know what? I just think I know that it can be tough for people to put a succession plan into place. Sometimes it's tough because you don't have anybody that you think would jump in. Sometimes it's just tough letting go. But I think I'm pretty proud of how smooth this transition has been for not only us but our clients. And Ken's still here. And I'm happy to have him here 2 days a week. Very specifically. No, you know what I mean? Like he's always here if I need him. It's not and if the clients want to speak to him occasionally, like that can happen too. Like there's a roadmap that you can put into place to make this happen. And there's a lot of different pathways to get to that end point. And you can deviate here and there. It doesn't have to be set in stone. And I think it's a great experience for our clients to know that Ken is still here, but I've got great relationships with all the clients now too. And so we're just really thrilled with how it's all gone.
Thank you, Ken and Ryan White, Guelph Financial from the beautiful town of Guelph. Thank you for being on Turning the Page. Thanks for joining me on Turning the Page. What did you learn from today's episode? If you follow me on LinkedIn, please drop me a comment there. I'd love to chat with you about it over a virtual coffee. Send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can do so at our website. The link's in the show notes. I'm Chris Reynolds, and until next time.